Hi, this is Christy with Life Struggles, and I have a special guest today, and his name is Chris Kozlowski. Please help me welcome Christopher.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good. So, I would like for you to tell me, first of all, what your biggest life struggle is.
Oh, my biggest life struggle, I would say staying strong during my sobriety, during tough moments in life still.
Okay, so you have an addiction?
I did, yes. I still have it, yeah.
And so what kind of addiction?
It was alcohol and pain pills mainly.
Okay, so then we have alcohol and drug addiction. So why don't you just tell me how it all started?
It started, I was a police officer for 20 years. And out of those 20 years, 10 of those years, I worked undercover. Child trafficking, drug related incident, and buying drugs or putting people away from jail, dealing with gangs and stuff like that. I did that for 10 years. And during it, as you can imagine, as a cop, you come across a lot of traumatizing things that you have to see and you have to deal with. And so, at the time I was married and I was going through all this stuff, and I was drinking very, light. It wasn't very heavy. My pill use was at a minimum, wasn't very high.
Can you tell me something really traumatic that in particular that you remember that you were having a hard time dealing with?
Yeah, I had one guy shot himself in the head with a gun on one incident. Another incident, I was taken. I was tired to where they stuck a gun to my head and was threatening to kill me, and they were fake dry firing the gun to put fear into me. So those are two of the top ones that I remember to this day.
Okay.
Still deal with.
Okay.
And so at the time when I was married, went through a divorce. Wasn't easy.
Wait a minute. So was there already things going on within the marriage, or did the problem start with?
There was stuff already going on at that time.
Okay.
My way I was coping was a huge problem, dealing with things. Then at this point, I was starting to slowly self-medicate with alcohol more than I normally would, or with pill use or anything like that. So it started to build from that point.
So this was as you were trying to deal with a couple of traumatic events in your job, then also some problems in your marriage.
Right. And then, of course, dealing with the depression, anxiety.
Okay. So you also had depression and anxiety?
Yes.
Okay. Were you diagnosed with those disorders? Or is that something?
I was diagnosed with them.
And so did they medicate you for them?
I didn't take anything for them.
Okay.
Which I do not recommend. It's not a very smart thing, but now it is something that's part of my lifestyle, is my mental health. And that taking my medicine that I take from my doctor. So
but so you weren't you were diagnosed with it, but you weren't taking any medication for it, so you're medicating basically yourself with probably illegal drugs and alcohol.
And as you can imagine, as an undercover, the drugs that I come across, and I never was into like heroin or stuff, but there was times as an undercover you had to deal with those things. But I was never, my main drug of choice was alcohol and pills for me.
Okay. What kind of pills?
Oxycodone, Vicodins.
Vicodin's a biggie.
Yeah, we used to call them, when we would buy them, working, we would call them hillbilly heroin, the pills, the oxys, because they were a little bit, believe it or not, the pills are actually a little bit cheaper than the heroin. Called
But I understand that a lot of the heroin users start out with the Vicodin.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're mainly oxys, oxycontins and stuff like that. Yeah.
But what's the other name for Oxycontins?
Um,
So like
codeine.
Percocet or
There's
codeine.
codeine, the codeine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I understand Vicodin has the biggest percentage of addiction and
Yeah.
one of the hardest to get off of. Like
I've read.
just straight getting off. Like you
Yes.
slowly have to get off.
Yes. I mean, just think of all the things that are powerful out there, and just to deal with something that a lot of people mainly get prescribed to them. You know what I mean? This is crazy.
I've had 3 surgeries, and each time they tried to, well, the very first time when I woke up in my room again. So I kind of remember the recovery, but not much.
Oh
But
wow.
when I woke up in the room, a nurse came and brought me 2 Vicodin, and I asked her what it was, which I didn't know what Vicodin was at the time, but she's like, "Oh, it's just something for your pain." And she said, "You're going to need it, so you might as well just take it." And I took it, and I have a very low tolerance apparently for,
Okay.
and so I had like hallucinations from it.
Oh wow.
It was awful. It was awful. I could not wait for it to get out of my system. And when she I think I was supposed to get it every 4 hours. So when she came, well, first of all, I kind of freaked out. Like I buzzed her as soon as I started having hallucinations.
Oh
I'm like, "What did you give me?" And then she explained it, and I told her what was going on. And she said, "You must have a low tolerance."
you're the first person I ever met that had a reaction like that. I knew that you could have them, but I never met or talked to anyone
Well,
that had.
and then when I tried to sleep, I would go into like nightmares, but then they would become real. It was not
Yeah.
good.
Wow, I can imagine.
So
I can,
that was if I could go to sleep, but mainly it was like a what do you call it? So it reacted backwards. Like instead, I guess it did take the pain away, but
right.
most people that I talk to say that like then they can go to sleep on it, but it made me hyper. So if
Yeah,
I
I've heard.
did fall asleep, I would have hallucinations, and then I'd wake up and then I'd be all shaky. So when she
Wow.
came 4 hours later to give me, I'm like, you know what? I'll just deal with the pain if that's all
Oh,
they're
wow.
going to give me. And I've ever since I've had 2 more surgeries since then, and I just say no pain pills. I don't want anything.
I don't blame you. That's how I.
But that's because I didn't want to. They offered me stuff, and I will tell you one time. Um, and I guess I could see if that was even a drug you could easily get, that could be a drug of choice. But so my gallbladder bursted, and I had infection going all through my body,
Oh,
and it was very painful, and I was very sick. But it happened, and like in the middle of the night, and I actually drove myself to the emergency room, and the hospital that I went to didn't have anybody that worked 3rd shift to do x-rays of any kind. And so they said, so I got in there at like 3:30 in the morning, and they said everybody comes on shift to do those at 6:30 or 7. But 6:30 was the earliest if they came in. They didn't clock in till 7. So they were
okay.
going to give me something. They were going to give me something for the pain. And I said, I don't want anything for the pain.
Yep.
And they knew what it was just because of my blood work that came back and where
Okay.
the pain was. But you're still like they said, before we can like schedule surgery, they still have to do a scan and whatever.
Right.
But so I said, what can you give me that is not going to make me hallucinate? And they're like, well, we don't really know because we don't know how you react to stuff. So I said, okay, well, so whatever they gave me to put me out for my last surgery, what was that? And so they looked it up and they said, well, normally it's normally what we give everybody. So it's, what is that? What do they put you out with?
Anesthesia.
Well, but the anesthesia has the drug in it, has a name for it.
Oh, I can't remember. It wasn't that the same stuff Michael Jackson was taking to go to sleep.
Yeah, maybe. Why do we
Propofol.
do this? Why are we having these
Is it
brain farts?
Propofol?
Huh?
Propofol or something like that, ain't it?
No, no, it's an easy name. Um, oh my goodness. I can't even believe this. I don't know why I'm having brain farts with you. Well, whatever. I'm not going to keep worrying about it right now. But I said, okay, so whatever you would give a baby, whatever amount you would give a baby, that's what I want you to give me. And the anesthesiologist said, that's not going to keep you under. And I said, so you're going to be standing there, right? And he said, right. I said, so if I start to wake up, put a gas mask over me and put me back out. And so that's what he did. And it was just the right amount. I did wake up right as they were stitching me up, but I didn't feel anything.
Oh, good. Oh, wow.
And I actually got to see them stitching me up. And then the anesthesiologist happened to look over and he saw me looking up that I was awake. And it was kind of funny because he started to bring the mask over and I said, I'm okay. Just let him finish.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any pain. I couldn't feel anything. So that, that part was still numb.
Wow.
So I didn't get any more, but so then they took me to the recovery room and so I didn't have any nausea. I didn't have any kind of side effects. I was wide awake. I was able to drink right away. And then they took me to my room early. Like most people have to have an hour in recovery. I had 25 minutes. They were going to wheelchair me up to my room. And it was only supposed to be like, I was supposed to be in there like 6 hours.
Right. Okay.
And I said, well, can I walk? And they're like, well, you just had surgery and you're medicated. It's probably not a good idea. And I said, well, from what I understand, it's better for you to start walking to get all that out of you so doesn't settle in your lungs.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't feel dizzy or nauseated. So if somebody can just walk next to me on each side, I'd like to try to walk. So they were like, okay, you're going to be sorry. But I walked, and when we got to my room, the nurses come right in, to, finish whatever their paperwork. And so they said, well, so we got something here for your pain. And I said, I don't need anything for my pain, but I want to walk. And they're like, you probably should lay down for a while. And I said, no, I want to walk around the nurse's station 3 or 4 times. And they're like, honey, you just got out of surgery. You're not going to be. And I said, I would like to hold on to somebody and walk
Around.
So
Yeah.
they let me, and within an hour they called the doctor and they're like, she's walking all over, not taking anything for pain. We might as well let her go home. And he said, okay. So I went home. So I have a low intolerance for pain or for medications, period.
Right.
So that's a plus for me.
That is a plus. That's a huge plus.
Yeah. Because I'm afraid to try anything.
Yeah, see, I'm opposite of that. I wasn't afraid.
Okay, so go ahead. So I just wanted to tell you that part.
Yeah. Well, my addiction, it wasn't from doing anything illegal. It came from legal prescriptions and everything at first.
So you were getting prescriptions.
Yeah, I was getting prescriptions of injuries I had, from a car dealing with.
What kind of injuries did you have?
Neck injuries, shoulder injuries. I had several head injuries. I was stabbed before. I was shot at before, so I had a lot of stuff happen. But my main injury that I was being seen for was neck pain.
Okay. So go ahead.
And so, and as I started, just living my life, doing that, I was going through a divorce and went through a pretty bad child custody uh, battle. And through that, somewhere, I don't know when, but it's almost like something's like a switch flipped in my head or something.
Okay.
And that's when I started abusing everything. Alcohol, the pills.
So you didn't have any side effects when you were actually combining the two?
I wasn't, no. Now, should have I been doing that? No. But I didn't have any type of reaction or anything bad or side effects from that.
Okay. So continue with your story. I'm looking up my word.
Oh, okay. Um, so I battled with that. Was hit pretty, I was hitting myself pretty hard. Because the reason I started taking alcohol more is because of the lie that that it tells you. I took it because it helped me forget, helped me forget about the pain, get rid of the pain of going through a divorce, going through child custody. And so, I started taking it more than, then I realized, spending all my time at the bar, it was cheaper just to buy everything and keep it at my house. And then I was just, you know, I just basically just ran amok where I lived and just stayed, didn't leave nowhere, didn't go nowhere. And then it came time for me to realize, I needed help. I needed to do something. I just didn't know how to do it. So so around that time, I started to look into rehabs and see what a rehab could do for me, because I knew of rehabs and stuff, but
So rehab's for the alcohol and drugs or for your pain?
for alcohol and drug and the pills
You have to, it's drugs.
or drugs.
Well, pills are drugs, right?
Yeah, they are, but I don't know. It's, to me, not that there's a difference, because there's not. It just to me, for people to understand, that's why I say pills, so they know that's a pretty big ordeal, being addicted to it. That's why I say pills.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like drugs, when you think drugs, you automatically think heroin or cocaine. You really don't necessarily, a lot of people don't think of pills that way.
No. And see, when I hear drugs, the first thing I think of is pain pills, because that's
Pain
the to begin with, that starts until they get to a heavier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think of that first. And a lot of times that doesn't go further than like the Vicodin or well, it usually goes further with the Tylenol coating to the Vicodin.
Yeah.
And then the Vicodin, if they're starting to use it because it just plain takes away any kind of emotional or physical pain,
Right.
And their body, and from the people that I've talked to have also said it's given them even a good feeling.
Hmm.
And so sometimes they would just take it to feel good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why it's so addicting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to me, that's just a drug addiction.
Right. I understand. Yeah. And see, in reason I was scared, because I knew my next stop off of taking pain pills is heroin. That's going to be the next stop.
Yeah, and I don't know a lot about heroin. I do know about meth. That's my brother's drug of choice.
Okay.
He's been sober 5 years now, but that's 5 years since he was 17 and he's 53.
Hmm.
So all those years, he started out smoking marijuana.
Yeah.
And that was to start out making him feel better, to already hide stuff that was going on. And it's funny because people think marijuana is nothing now, but
Right.
I could tell from him having one joint and walking in the door that he had had a joint. And not because he was hungry. I could tell his whole attitude was changed, his whole personality.
Right.
And as he smoked more, so you know how like some people that are drunk, let's just go on that topic. So if they've had too much to drink, some people get happy and stupid happy. They think everything's funny and they're a jokester and whatever. Some get mean, right?
Yeah.
It just depends. Well, he got with his marijuana, he got mean if he smoked more. And then pretty soon it quit working for him. And so then he went to Vicodin.
Okay.
But he didn't have pain. He just heard from somebody on the street that Vicodin would help him feel better emotionally. Right, and so then he went from that, and then he became meth. Never did drink.
Oh, wow.
Never had the desire to, but so meth was his, and he never ever did it in front of us. I never saw him high. Nobody's ever seen him high in our family. He would always go someplace else, and he would go on a bend.
Okay.
And when he was done, then he would come home and he would sleep for like 2 days.
Wow.
And then he would be back to normal. Well, whatever his normal is.
Yeah, what his normal was.
Yeah. So basically I finally, when 5 years ago, he hit rock bottom and begged and pleaded with me to move in with me, because he had no place to stay anymore. He was homeless. Okay. Even the homeless shelters were kicking him out. And let me tell you, that's like so hard to do to I did it to my dad. And then I had my brother to face with, and I had given him over the years probably 5 times that I took him in, and I took custody of all 3 of his children when he was younger, and raised them, and then finally he was, this last time, which was 5 years ago, my youngest son would have been 15, and I said, no, I'm not gonna have my son watch you leave and not come back for days, because he had gotten really close to him. And I said, I don't want him to see the life that I had to grow up watching. Right. I want him to know about it. So hopefully someday you'll tell us about it, but I don't want him to experience it. Right. Yeah, I understand. And so I said, and the last time he had stayed with us, it didn't matter even if he had a good job, he'd run out of that money, so he wouldn't pay rent that he was supposed to, and he would steal from us. He stole my jewelry, and he would sell it, and no conscience whatsoever when he wanted to get high. Now, afterwards was different. I mean, he cried. Yeah. And it just quit working on me. I just got so tired of it that I was done. I was done. Yeah. And so when he asked me the last time, I said, part of loving somebody is knowing when to say no. Yes. And yes, I said, I never thought I would have to do this again after Dad, but no, you're on your own. And he begged and pleaded and whatever. And I cried, and I said, I'm sorry, but I can't help you be an addict. And that's what I'm doing. Right, exactly. Even though I put rules down in the whole 9 yards, he broke them. So after the first time, really, I should have said no more, but it took 3 times. So then it was no. And he had already, like, I was the last person he wanted to ever ask. So I was always his last hope anyway.
Gotcha.
So once I said no, and that was it, he had hit his rock bottom.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway,
Yeah.
so how did
No,
you hit your rock bottom?
I knew I was there. It wasn't that, I knew where I was heading, and that was more scarier than where I was at that point. And so I knew I needed help. And so I had a friend actually help me look for a rehab, because I knew I needed help. This was longer than, a few hour session. I knew I had a problem. And so I went ahead, found a rehab, called, got in immediately. I think within 2 or 3 hours, I think I had to be there. And I was there early. Actually, I was still high and drunk.
Now, do they allow you in when you're still?
Wait like 3-4 hours before they would let me in.
So they don't let you in if you're high.
Yeah. And once I went in there, I hit the ground running. Like, I knew that I was going to make it. I wasn't, most people you talk to that are in rehabs, a lot of them are scared, which I can completely understand. It's fearful sometimes to get sober. It can be. And so I hit the ground and just went running. I wanted to get sober so bad because, I was there for 32 days. And so that's 32 days I was away from my children. And that was enough to kill me. It was enough to make me sick, for not being in their life. And it's not because anything anyone's done. It's because of what I was doing. They took me away from them. But I hit the ground running. And I actually had to do, it was a struggle at first. After I got a rehab, I did rehab. I did well in rehab.
How many weeks did you have to sign up for, or was there a time?
32 days.
32 days. Okay.
32 days.
Well, that's one more day than in a full month.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
So yeah, I was there 30. I don't know why I was 32, but they talked me into staying 32 days. So
most of ours started at 6 weeks around here.
What's that?
Most of ours started at 6 weeks around.
Oh, now I've heard some like 9 months and stuff like that.
I'm saying they start at 6 weeks, and if you're not ready, then they extend, and they just keep extending until you're ready.
When I was waiting to get into rehab to the one I went to, the one I was going was 9 months. Like,
now,
I had
what
to be there.
state are you in?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Okay.
Yeah. And so I hit the ground run. So I had to do things a little bit different because you got to remember, AA meetings I had to do differently. Now, I'm not telling anyone not to do AA. I'm not advocating that. I think AA and NA is very important, for people. I'm just saying for myself, I had to take a different step because, what was I before I went there? I was undercover cop, and I was a cop for years. So I arrested, if not all those people in the AA.
Sure.
And
that could be very dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very uncomfortable for me. So, I sat down with my mom and dad. We worked out a plan of being accountable. I spoke with my pastor, and, I was right under him. Regarding that I report to him no matter what. He was going to do the tough love. My mom and dad were going to do the tough love with me. There was no screwing up. It's success only. And so for the past, since 2017, I've been clean since 2017, and it's, been wonderful in my life. Now, I still deal with depression. Now, for some reason, people think, I don't know why this concept is, but I know a lot of people think, well, when you you know, get clean, you don't have any more depression, you don't have any more anxiety or anything like that. I don't know why people assume that, but they do.
Huh.
And but I
A
still had
lot
to
of
deal with stuff, and I had to deal with it sober. So that meant, you know, I felt the full fledged of
That's
things.
really strange because depression and anxiety are actually two different disorders
Hmm.
and don't necessarily have to do with either one of those. It could be a reason why you would take pills or
Right.
alcohol, but those are totally separate disorders.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So I couldn't find, I kept searching for that medication, and then just out of the blue, it came up. So it's morphine.
Oh, morphine. They put you under with morphine?
Now
I
that's
know.
not the complete anesthesia.
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
they get. That's what they give you to put you to sleep before they give you the anesthesia.
Oh, I never knew that.
And that's what makes you sick to your stomach.
The morphine. Well, that makes sense now. Yeah.
And yeah, so like I told them they had to give me so I got 1 milligram of morphine,
Right.
which is for a baby, seriously a baby. So I
Right.
always say, give me the baby dosage.
Yeah.
And I get no side effects. And then as far as the anesthesia part, then I tell them the lowest amount that you can give me. And all 3 of my surgeries, I did wake up. But it was always at the end.
Well,
So,
that's better than the beginning.
well, yeah, but I'm just saying, so I didn't have to have extra.
Right. I know. I
So,
understand.
so I would get sick, but definitely it's better than in the beginning.
Yeah.
But the stuff that's in the anesthesia is a numbing for pain too. So
Yeah. See, I'm unfamiliar with that. I'd see it. That's the first I heard. I didn't know they gave you morphine first. Did not know that.
that's it's just stronger than Valium, but it's got some pain medicine in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well,
um,
huh.
minor surgeries they'll give you beforehand, for anxiety or whatever, Xanax or Valium or something like that.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
candy.
Yeah.
At one point I went through a panic disorder, and it was actually from a medical condition. It just came out of nowhere. And of course, every doctor I went to said, "Oh, you're just depressed." And first of all, I wouldn't be in denial if I was depressed, because I got my degree in psychology and I'm a life coach. I know
Right.
all the things to look for. I was not depressed. The things that were happening were real, and I could not get one doctor to do anything but say, that sounds like depression. We'll give you something for depression. I'm like, I'm not going to take depression medicine. I'm not depressed.
Right.
No. And I think it was after a year, when I was like so bad, that the last one that said, just try it. Just try it. So I said, fine, I'll try it. And I tried it, and it had the adverse effect. And the next morning when I woke up, I felt nothing.
Oh, wow.
So when I say felt nothing, I guess I now know what a severely depressed person feels. So I
Yeah.
feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I felt nothing.
Yeah.
And that was the worst feeling in the world, which means it had an adverse effect on me.
Okay.
So I called the doctor right away, and it wasn't my usual doctor. I had tried 5 different doctors. And I said, okay. And plus they told me that it would take 2 weeks to get into my system.
Oh, isn't that killer knowing you have to wait that long?
Well, but it didn't. Yeah, that would be for somebody that was depressed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it took less than 24 hours to affect my system,
Hmm.
because I wasn't depressed.
Right.
So I said, this is what I'm feeling now. Nothing. So I'm not taking any more of that. And he said, fine, I just don't know what to do for you. So it just so happened, like 6 weeks later. So I was pretty bad by then, but 6 weeks later, I had my yearly gynecological appointment. And I was to the point where I could no longer walk without somebody helping me. I was so weak. I had to have somebody come in to shower me. I was married, but my husband worked out of town, and actually we had a business together, and I couldn't go with him to do our jobs. We renovated Marriott hotels
Oh, wow.
all
Okay.
over the United States, and it was really fun. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't even get to the bathroom myself. I couldn't even crawl. So thankfully, my girlfriend was not married. She didn't have children, and she was a nurse. And so she came and stayed with me. And before she worked first shift. So before she left, she got me in the restroom and she got me breakfast.
Okay.
And then her lunch hour, she would come home and bring me lunch and take me to the bathroom. And then after work, she would obviously be home for the night. So she's the one. I didn't even leave the house because I wasn't strong enough to even go to the bathroom by myself.
Right.
So she took me to my gynecologist appointment. And the first thing the gynecologist said when I walked in the room, she said, "Oh my God, what's happened to you?" And I said, "What?" And she said, "You look like death." And I had lost like 40 pounds. Anyway, I looked horrible. And she said, "What's going on?" And I said, "I wish the heck somebody'd find out." And she said, "So tell me what's been going on." So I told her, and she said, "Has anybody checked your thyroid?" I didn't even know what a thyroid was or what it did for you. And I said, "Nobody even did blood work." Every doctor I went to, when I told him my symptoms, said, "You're depressed." Automatically, "You're depressed." And every one of them, I said, "Look, this time I have the best marriage I could have. We make plenty of money. We don't have any outstanding bills. We're happy. We're doing the thing that we always wanted to do, travel all over and work at the same time. And, when we got off, we get to see all these new cities and do things." And I said, "I'm not depressed. I would know if I was depressed. And I would say I'm depressed. So there's something going on and nobody will check. They just assume I'm depressed because of what I'm telling them is going on, which was extreme tiredness. And then I didn't even tell them the very last one, because when I got so bad, when I got to the worst part of it, so I'll just get back to my gynecologist. So she said, "Well, I'm going to do blood work and check your THC, TH1 and T4, which is for your thyroid." And do you know anything about the thyroid?
No, not really. No.
Okay, so it's located in your neck, and it actually controls your brain, your heart, everything in your body. It tells it what to do. So I had a goiter that was sitting up against my thyroid, is what they found in the x-ray. But so your normal, so everybody's thyroid can get off. Normally it's caused by a cancerous tumor or some kind of noid, like I just explained. And so anyway, you can feel it. It actually, if you feel it, feels like an Adam's apple on a man. That's why my voice is deep, because that's up against there. So, before the test results even came back, my gynecologist felt around in there and she could feel it right away. And actually, if you press on it hard enough, it hurts. So, they were really pressing. So it almost feels like you're being choked because there was something on it. Okay, so it was closing it. Anyway, when my levels came back, she said, "Okay, so I'm just going to explain this to you so you know why you're feeling like death. So your normal thyroid should be between 1 and 5, those numbers. So if it's a hypothyroid, then it would be over 5, so plus numbers. And if it was a underactive, then it would be a negative value. My thyroid count came out at 375.
Mm.
She said that she's never heard of anybody alive with that high of a number. So she immediately called the hospital, called a specialist, and told them to be at the hospital waiting for me, and had my girlfriend take me over. So then I had a specialist, which is called an endocrinologist. And every single question he asked me, I had. And every single one of those symptoms I told those other doctors, but they were MDs. And none of them thought of a thyroid. But every single one question he asked me was, yep, that's a symptom I have. Yep, that's a symptom I have. The very last one, which I was very embarrassed to tell any doctor, which wasn't until the end. You ready for this?
Sure.
I had nightmares that I was killing people. Nobody I knew. And it was horrifying. And I thought I'd lost my mind. I've never, ever thought about hurting anybody. I'm like got the kindest, nicest heart there is.
Mm-hmm.
And to have thoughts of and dreams, nightmares of killing people, I knew if I said that, they'd put me in an insane asylum.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're laughing, but when this specialist asked me that, and that was his last question, he said, "So are you happening to have any kind of strange nightmares?" I just was like, "Oh, thank God." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Are they bad?" And I said, "They're really bad." And he said, and I started crying. And he said, "You don't have to tell me about them. I've been dealing with this with years. I'm a specialist." He said, "But what I will tell you is as soon as I get that thyroid under control, you won't have any of those things anymore." And he said, "And then it's probably a good idea that you didn't tell that one, because there are doctors that never check the thyroid and automatically assume that you are insane. And women are and this is mostly with women, when it's a hypothyroid that high, are put into insane asylums.
Mm-hmm.
When it's a medical condition that could have been taken care of.
Right.
And they end up dying from it.
Huh.
Because they're not medicated for it. So he first had to check to see if it was cancerous. So a needle about this long was stuck through my throat with nothing to numb it. He just said, we got to do this fast, because I got to get you started on your medication to get those numbers down, or I'm going to lose you. That's how close I was to death.
Mm-hmm.
And so he stuck it through and had it, they had a lab right in the building, and it wasn't cancerous. So he said, that's a good thing. We don't have to remove it. So he said, as long as it doesn't grow, it just stays the same size, then medication is what, and obviously it'll be the rest of your life. He said, the only thing is, with that sitting there, you'll probably always have panic attacks unless I have you on a medication for panic attacks.
Okay.
And so I have been on a medication for my thyroid, and it has stayed the same for all these years, and it's been 31 years. And for the panic attacks, which are caused by the thing on my thyroid, and I've been on the very same dose, haven't changed that dose either. It's just a 0.25 once a day.
Huh.
And that's controlled that. So I do have to take 2 medications, but I'm going to tell you, when he told me about it's Xanax, well, no, first he said Ativan, and he gave me an Ativan, and I freaked out. Like, he gave it to me for a week, and on the third day, so I didn't have to be hospitalized after the first day. He sent me home, and I had the prescription, and every 2 weeks I was going to have to go in, and he was going to have to recheck so he could adjust the medication, because he said it was a slow process to get it right to where it should be. Well, because I was so high, my level was so high, he put me on a strong dosage. And it made me, again, the opposite. And I went hyperthyroidism. And I didn't sleep for 3 nights or days at all and shook. And I called him and I said, okay, I can't do this, can't go to sleep at all.
Right.
I wasn't hungry, I wasn't nothing. So he said, okay, so I got to take the dosage down. But there again was that my sensitivity to medications. And so I didn't even think about it when I told him about that. Well, then with the Ativan on my 3rd day, I went to get some groceries. And I was in the grocery store walking, and all of a sudden I didn't know where I was or why I was there. That's how it affected me.
Okay.
So I had to call somebody and have him come get me and then take me back to his office. And I'm like, that's not going to work. I didn't even know. That was scary, not knowing where I was,
Yeah.
not knowing why I went there, how I got there. So then he said, you know what, you weren't kidding when you said you had a low tolerance for medication. So he went to the 0.25 Xanax, which has been absolutely perfect. The only side effect, I don't have side effects whatsoever. The only thing it's done is take the panic attacks away.
Right.
Or controlled them, I should say. I've not had one now in 25 years. So anyway, so I can't be addicted to drugs because I can't take them.
Yeah, you have some crazy side effects with them.
So I guess I was blessed with that.
I would say that's definitely a good blessing to have. That's for sure.
Okay, so when you came out, you went through. Did you go to AA meetings?
I did until it became very uncomfortable because people were starting to figure out who I was and remember me and stuff like that. So after that, I met with my pastor, spoke with my mom and dad. We sat down and worked out a plan. And I spoke with somebody that was very active in AA that knew my story, me being a cop and stuff was kind of uncomfortable to be at these meetings and stuff like that.
So before you continue, I want to ask you, so were you diagnosed with PTSD too?
Yes, I'm diagnosed with that as well.
Okay, go ahead.
And so, we did a program. I stuck with it. I still do it. I don't, I still stick to it 5 years, down the road. I still stick with it. I still do it.
Is this a program somebody came up for you?
Something to help so something would work for me, so I would have something. I wouldn't say it's a program out there. It's not a program out there. It's something, that someone kind of helped me with for myself, but it's not like, you can buy a book of it or anything like that. It was just something that, we sat down, we worked out because I was serious about being sober. I was dead.
Can you share that with us? What you do? Can you share
what
you do?
I had meetings, but they weren't AA or NA meetings. I went to, I would meet with my pastor. He would have just meeting just for me.
Okay.
We would do scripture reading because I'm a Christian. So we did scripture reading and, stuff to help me with my walk with Christ as well.
Okay.
And of course I had someone that was my sponsor that I still kept in contact with, but understood that I was going somewhere else.
Okay.
So I was able to still have that accountability with a couple people.
Right. So if you couldn't get a hold of your pastor, you could get a hold of your sponsor.
Exactly. Okay. And vice versa. It was the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And so it worked out great for me. Like I said, I still do it, and I still deal with things, with anxiety. I still have that. And, but I'm learning how to work through life with it. You know what I mean?
Okay. So then we need to know what you're doing to work through it.
So what I do is mainly is meditation is huge, prayer,
Okay.
huge thing for me. Music is another huge thing. I done things that I've done all my life since I was a teenager, but then realized, wow, how therapeutic this would help me, and with my walk of staying sober. So music would have to be the number one on my list for how I cope with anxiety. Because I'll sit and write a lot of songs, or I'll just play music till I start to get a sense of relief, or I start to feel somewhat better.
So
And
when you say play music, is there an instrument you're talking about,
I,
or something that you listen to?
I play all kinds of different instruments, but the main ones that I play is guitar. Like that would be the one I would use to sit down with. Like if I had to do something right now, I would sit down with the guitar and just play music. I work a lot with church music. I'll rewrite a lot of church music, and
Mhm.
so definitely a huge part of my list for working through depression, working through staying sober. So that's a huge thing that works on all levels for me.
You go to a prayer group?
We used to have one when I first started. It's not as big right now as it was, but I still,
I suppose COVID has something to do with that.
yeah, a little bit. And so, but I still was able to do even COVID's not an excuse though.
No, I
So
understand. I'm saying that it would be like you
it'd be
not
other
have
people.
a
Yeah.
meeting in a building with all of you together,
Yes.
like you'd have to do a Zoom call
Yeah.
or something.
But I still stayed in contact with people I needed to stay in contact with that, had my sobriety, that was important to them,
Mhm.
so, of course I still had to do a lot, like friends. I couldn't keep the same friends. I had to get rid of all of them, to be honest with you. Um, so, and there's, and I still, I haven't done it for a while, but I used to say the Serenity Prayer all the time.
Mhm.
I learned that in rehab. That's where you learn that. I was first induced to that in rehab.
You know,
And
that Serenity Prayer is in any kind of addiction. Did you know that?
yeah, yeah, no, I did not. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Go ahead.
But I still, like I said, I get days where I'm depressed, and I use music, and I have people now in my life, I didn't before because I had to get rid of all of them. Now I'm replacing all the old friends with all these new wonderful people in my life.
So was there a period between getting rid of the old and getting new where you were alone?
Yes. Oh yeah. There was I'm not sure how long, but it was a period of time.
I bet you that was hard too.
It was hard because I think there's something about once you start getting sober, you start seeing who your true friends are, or something like that.
Of
I
course.
probably wrong, but I'm sure.
Especially
But
if if they're all drinking buddies
yeah, exactly.
and you have to get rid
It's-
of them.
yeah, so I replaced it with good people that cared about my sobriety. And there were people I could call right now if I needed to say, hey, I really need to talk.
And you
And
definitely have to stay out of bars.
yes, that was number one, but that's been since 5 years ago. I've been out of bars, so that's pretty good. Um, but I had my uncle. I was very close with my uncle, and he was part of my recovery. And he passed away. He was someone I could talk to 1, 2 in the morning, 6 in the morning, and of course he passed away due to COVID about a month ago now.
Sorry
And
to hear.
so and so now I'm back. I'm not as bad as I was, like with replacing people. I just have people that I just got to call. When I get to that point when I need someone to talk to again, then I will call them.
Mhm.
It was just nice having someone that you're right there with me whenever I need it, and family too. That was a real nice for me. It was nice that way. And so I still do that. I talk my problems out. And for me, my mental health had to get right for my sobriety would work. So my sobriety would work. if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like, I had to take my medication. I don't, a lot of people, well, I feel great today, so I won't take it. And so they don't take it and they get messed up from not taking their medicine. They don't stay on a level balance.
So is your depression, is that something that is hereditary, or was that caused by something?
It was caused. It was caused from the type of line of work I was in, and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so, and the
And is
anxiety,
the anxiety the same thing?
yeah, yeah, it came from the
So
same.
is there other things that what you went through that like today would cause you anxiety?
Um, no, because I'm trying to think what anything specific. I mean, I still get the normal anxiety, like I'm running late. I mean, I still get that, you know what I mean? That, oh, I'm running late. I, don't want to be late and stuff like that. A lot of people, like, I get a little bit of anxiety of that. But stuff right now, like my uncle passing away, that was a huge, hit to me. And so that something with that depression and anxiety kind of hit a little extra heavy around that time when he passed away. But as long as I do what's been working for me and what's worked from day one, I have no fear of that. I remember one time Mike Tyson. You know who Mike Tyson
Of
is,
course.
and he was fighting, and they asked him, "How do you like?" Because this is when he was winning. This is when he's on top at the time. And they asked him, "What do you like? How do you win all this?" He goes, "I simply refuse to lose." He goes, "I refuse it." And I was like, well, I'm going to adapt that into my sobriety, where I just simply refuse to slip. I refuse. And so, and I keep that mindset as well.
So
And
just a little thing here. You didn't bring it up, but Mike Tyson, I absolutely could not stand. I thought he was like the meanest, most
yeah,
hateful person there was. But he turned his life around.
he did.
And I
He
don't
did.
know if you've ever watched any of his interviews, because he interviews people. He's on.
Big difference between now and then, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Now he sounds damaged. He sounds brain damaged
Yeah.
from all of his fighting, but and he still cusses or whatever, but he believes in God, and he uses his faith and preaches his faith.
Right.
So totally different person,
He
but
he is a person. I've noticed that.
yeah, but
So,
yeah,
but
I
so I adapted that to what he would use in his fights that worked for him. So I took it and used it for my sobriety. So
okay, well, gee, you should send him a little note and tell him, even though that wasn't a good time in his life, you took those words and used it to make it good.
very true.
That's great. Okay, so why don't we just sum up then? And obviously, these things aren't going to be for everybody.
Right.
Just like, so I know this from my family and myself. So for AA meetings, I do recommend them. However, you can't always find one that's right for you.
Yes.
And it does have to be right for you, or it's not going to help you. And that's not just AA, but we're talking about alcohol. So that's why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
There's grieving groups, and I
Yeah.
promise you, I went to a grieving group. I took my sister when my brother died, my sister-in-law, and I mean, we left there going, okay, we would never go back to that again.
Yeah.
So you need to find one that works for you. And
Yeah.
if there's not one any close, then I would do what you are suggesting. And if you go to church, reach out to your church.
Yeah.
And see, first of all, a lot of churches have programs themselves.
Yes, they do.
And then if you get a small enough church, a lot of times the pastor can help you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have the education to help you. So that could be good. as far as if they knew a little bit about it, but maybe they're just going to talk to you about your faith,
Right.
and your faith is going to be what's pulling you through. That may not be enough for somebody all the time, which is why you need a sponsor too.
Yes.
So
Yes.
even if you can't find a AA group, you at least need to find a sponsor,
Yes.
somebody that you can call when you have that urge.
Yes.
So, and then you said you pray, and you practice meditation?
My meditation is prayer. So
Okay,
that's,
so different thing,
yeah.
because you pray, but I suggest meditation too, just as a relaxation thing.
Right.
And I hope, and I do put it in the notes, and I do a little thing that we are not by any way telling people this is the way, that you should do stuff. We're just
Right.
giving some options of what has worked for us or other people that we know. So clarify that, but let's just go through. So I went through, you found a group, but then you didn't. So you
Right.
went to a pastor, and you have a sponsor,
Right.
and you use your music.
Yes.
That's your go-to,
Exactly. Yeah.
and your faith. So was there anything else that you use?
No, that was it. Those were the fundamentals that I used, yeah, to help me still, and which still helps. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So do you know of, now see, these are things I learned from Al-Anon. So like, do you know that you shouldn't take NyQuil if you have a cold?
I know not to take it since I had a problem with alcohol. That's the
Right,
only reason not
right.
to take.
That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because
Yeah. Then yeah.
a lot of people don't know that are alcoholics. There's not anybody that's told them that. But I remember when after my dad went through recovery and started going, it was at his AA meeting that they actually, well, they had tested him, and it actually showed up in his urine test. And he said, he kept arguing with him. I did not do any alcohol. But he did have a cold at the time. And so they said, have you
Well,
been taking any cold medicine? And he said, well, NyQuil, so my coughing would stop at night and I could sleep. And they said, no
no.
NyQuil, got alcohol in it.
Yeah.
So, and there could be other ones. I don't know. That's just the one at the time. And that was years ago. So there could be other cough medicines that have alcohol in
Yeah.
it. I don't know.
Was the only thing that I'm thinking of right now. I'm sure, like you said, I'm sure there's probably other ones, but I can't really recall what the other one. I don't think Robitussin or anything like that has
Well,
that.
I would just say check the label, or ask
Yeah.
a pharmacist.
They would know the best, the pharmacist. Yeah.
But to me, if you're an alcoholic, before you took anything for coughs or colds, I would check with the pharmacy. That
Yeah.
would be one of the things that I would suggest to people.
Yes, I think that would be huge. That'd be a huge thing.
Because I don't think everybody thinks about that. I would have never known. My dad would have never known.
No, and it's even as simple as, I have to watch what type of mouthwash I even get.
Right.
You-
Right.
So it's very crucial that you pay attention to that stuff.
So then I think in general, we should say before you take any type of medications or anything that you're going to put into your body, that you need to check the labels.
Oh yeah, yes. I did that very thoroughly for a while.
Yeah. Okay. So is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, that's all that I could think of at this moment.
Okay. I think we're going to wrap it up. Okay. But I would like you to give our audience, if you don't mind, I did notice, well, give them your Instagram.
Oh, it's Sober Coffee Dad is the
Okay.
Instagram.
I think you have a little bit of a story behind that too, don't you?
My friend, I was I wanted to do something with sobriety. And for some reason, Instagram, and I was thinking on sobriety, and I seen a couple of people's profiles on sobriety. I'm like, oh, maybe, I could do something on here. And also I use it as, I have my number on there that I have up there in case people ever need someone to talk to.
Okay.
And
So,
so
and has anybody used that?
no, not yet, believe it or
No.
not.
How long have you
Not
been on there?
like I think this is my second week.
Okay. So that's
So
okay. That's
it'll
not
get
bad.
out.
I haven't, I saw a quick bio. I don't know what else you have on it. But what if somebody did call you? I mean, maybe you should add a little bit to it, like if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling like drinking, if you feel like you're going to go off the wagon. I don't know
I,
what do they call it? Fall off. What do they call
yeah.
that when you fall off the wagon?
Oh, falling off the wagon.
Is that what they still call it?
Yeah, falling off the wagon. And
You know,
yeah, I
I
could probably
mean,
change
is
some.
that what you're trying to do? Is help
Well, for
somebody that,
help anyone. It's someone that needs help in recovery. Anyone that just they don't have no one to talk. Because I know, because when I was going through that transitioning of going from AA to church and trying to put people in place, it was hard not having someone to talk to at first.
so I guess I'm kind of asking you that because I'm not sure that I would want um, somebody that's depressed calling you because you're not qualified in that area.
Well, no. Like I said, it's open to whoever. I understand what you mean. And of course, I would definitely put them in contact with people to
Okay.
continue on. But I'm mainly there as if you just need someone to talk to. What I mean? Just need to blow some. You had a bad day at work. Just stuff like that. You have
So that's
problems.
what I think you need to put on there so that people will call you. You need to kind of clarify if it just has your phone number. And
Mhm.
the only reason I'm saying that is because I don't even have that on my bio. It is in there for contact information,
Right.
obviously, and that's for me with podcasting. But I get phone calls for men that are just interested,
Yeah. I
you know,
don't think.
and so you could
Um,
possibly get calls
yeah.
like that. And maybe you don't mind, but if that's what it looks like, a lot of times that will steer people away too.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
specify what you're doing
Right.
for that, so that's just a suggestion
Hmm.
um, to,
Sounds good.
to look at so that because it's great to have somebody out there that a perfectly strange person that doesn't know who to reach out to or how to, or maybe doesn't want to know that person, they just want to talk, is a good idea.
Yeah.
So I commend you for that.
Thank you.
So you're called I'm sorry, Sober Coffee Dad.
Yeah.
And I think you started saying why you got that coffee in there.
Yeah. Well, I love coffee.
Just love coffee.
And my friend, she does Instagram where she travels like to different coffee shops and rates them and stuff on Instagram.
Mhm.
But she came up, well, you need, your thing that you want to go with, which would be sobriety. And so you need to add something simple with it, or I forget how she put it,
Yeah.
but it's a coffee. So that's how we came with sober coffee. And I'm a dad. So
Okay. And you know what? I was supposed to end that with this, but I wanted to know, were your children affected by your addiction?
they were at first, but then I had to sit down and have a talk with them. Once I got to rehab, I could only give them a couple minutes a day of trying to explain, why I'm calling from a
Mhm.
rehab,
Mhm.
and they were, but then as I sat and talked to them about it, and they understood, not that they understand that, they knew it, that I shouldn't have went down that path. It's as simple as that, but I did. And
But is addiction in your family?
yes, it is.
So are you teaching your children that?
I'm teaching them to stay away from them, not to touch it at all.
But have you explained to them the hereditary genes that
Yeah.
could happen?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So that's
I,
another thing that we want to suggest to people that have genetic addictions.
yeah, I also spoke to that as far as my ex-wife regarding that too. That's something we had a conversation about,
Mhm.
for Yeah, my son's 16, my daughter's 12.
Mhm,
My son's in a high school life right now. So,
mhm.
but yeah, I had a very serious talk with them about it. So
Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much for being
thank
on
you.
here. I probably won't be done editing until tomorrow.
Okay. So
And so I will post something then, and I want you to share, share, share. I want you to,
sure.
everybody you can think of to share, copy the
Well,
link and share it. We want to get this out there so that people know that they're not alone.
yes, that'd be great. That'd be huge.
We want them to know that there are ways, and everybody has different ways. So that's why I wanted you to name your ways. Everybody
Yeah,
has different ways of coping with
exactly.
their life struggles.
Right.
So again, I thank you so much for being with
Thank you.
us.
Yeah,
And
I enjoyed it.
I will talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you.